New Wake Forest head coach Jake Dicker took a bit of a swing with his defensive coordinator hire, tapping Scottie Hazelton to lead his defense. Hazelton has been a bit of a journeyman across his career as he's coming over from Texas, where he was the special assistant to the head coach Steve Sarkisian this past season. Before that, he spent 4 years in Michigan State with a defense that frankly struggled underneath his watch. They gave up program record after program record on defense, and it never really felt like a great fit. The thing is, before that, it's pretty damn good. His only year at Kansas State in 2019, Hazelton got the Wildcats to only allowing 21.4 points per game, their best mark in over 15 seasons. They were second nationally on third downs that year, only giving up 28% for conversions. In 2018 at Wyoming, the Cowboys ranked 19th in total defense, giving up only 326 yards a game, and 29th in scoring defense, only allowing 22 points per game. The previous year, his first as their defensive coordinator, they were first in the nation in turnovers forced with 38, ninth in the country in scoring defense at 17.5 points per game allowed, and 23rd in total defense, only allowing 335 yards per game. Seems pretty good, no? Well, that trend held from his time at North Dakota State, where in both seasons as the defensive coordinator, they ranked top 10 nationally in scoring defense, including leading the FCS in 2011. So now that we have the numbers from when he was defensive coordinator in the past, how did he actually achieve that? What was the structure of his defense? Where did he learn it from? So if you look at this picture behind me, this is nothing but Tampa 2, something that people love and love to hate. So all Tampa 2 is essentially a variation of a cover 2 defense. What does cover 2 mean? Cover 2 simply means that there are two defensive backs that are essentially overseeing the play. They are there for help over the top, and it's used to stop people from just throwing bombs over the top. In the late 90s, you had the West Coast offense, and people were just absolutely dicing up normal cover 2 because you look at this graph, you go, okay, there's a free safety here, there's a strong safety here. All people had to do was really just get the middle of the field. That's all they had to do. And so in the late 90s, Tony Dungy, then head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, said, you know what, enough. I'm going to make some adjustments to this stock coverage that we're playing. And that's where the Tampa 2 came about. He would then take their middle or Mike linebacker and say, you know what, instead of you sitting in this zone that you see here, which is, about 5 yards, maybe 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, let's have you carry any and all deep routes through the middle of the field. And so what that essentially does is instead of now the field's cut in half with a safety one hash and safety another hash, cutting the field in half, now we are cutting the field in the thirds. The free safety can kind of take this third of the field, the linebacker is taking this third of the field, and the strong safety is taking this other third of the field. Hold on to that thought about thirds for one quick second. Why does Tony Dungy matter? Where did he come into any of this? So when Scottie Hazelton was at North Dakota State, he was brought up by Gus Bradley and Bob Babich. If you don't know either of those names, congrats, you have a life. Both of those names are ones that can be traced back to the origins of Tampa 2. Gus Bradley worked closely as the linebackers coach with then Bucs defensive coordinator Monty Kiffin for 3 years, while Babich was with the Bears for almost a decade with Lovie Smith, who was one of the developers of the Tampa 2 with Tony Dungy. Now this is the part of where you start yelling at me and going, wait, is Wake going to run a seemingly obsolete defense? Tampa 2 gets absolutely cooked left and right. I get it. The answer to that is yes and no. And it gets back to what I said to hold on about, of the fact that now in Tampa 2, instead of you going into halves, you're cutting the field into thirds. So this is cover 3. Specifically, this is spot drop cover 3. There are a lot more complex versions of it you can run, like pattern matching, which Hazelton does run. But for the purposes of an intro explanation, we're going to keep things simple. You can see how, unlike standard cover 2, the field is actually cut into thirds at the back end. You have two corners that'll probably start around 4 or 5 yards off, and then we'll bail from there. And you'll have this idea of, oh no, why are our corners playing 10 yards off the ball? What are we going to do? We can't stop underneath routes. That's why people don't run just stock cover 3. But that's the idea for the corners. You'll see close to the line of scrimmage, you'll have a safety and a nickel. Hello, Devon Patterson. Hello, Zamari Stevenson. Where these guys can be very versatile. in a Hazelton defense, that nickel slash the safety that's at the line of scrimmage is one of their leading tacklers basically every year. You also have got two linebackers. They can simulate pressure. They can drop back into coverage. They can rush. They can do a lot of things. And so the idea from earlier was from Tampa 2 was that it split the field into 3. And that's the same idea here with cover 3. Brett Coleman, who I respect a lot, made an excellent video about a year or so ago that I'll drop in the description and in the comments about how Tampa 2 and cover 3, while called different things, are essentially the same idea. And that's something that even the disciples and the creators of Tampa 2 will tell you. But the big reason why the Tampa 2 disciples will now open up their play calling with cover 3, you'll see with Hazelton just about every first down or so, that first call is going to be either cover 3 or maybe cover 1. Cover 1 is just you'll have the free safety patrolling the middle of the field. He's very deep, and the corners are probably playing man drill, and they'll be a lot closer to the line of scrimmage, manning up their wide receivers. More often than not, you'll see cover 3. And the reason why Tampa 2 disciples open up their play calling with cover 3 has absolutely nothing to do actually with the passing game. It has everything to do with numbers. And you're not going to talk about the Pythagorean theorem or something super complex there. We're talking about counting 1, 2, 3 and subtracting 1, 2, 3. Going back to Tampa 2, if you're an offense that's trying to run the football regardless of what look you're getting, what your rules are is I need my numbers to be 0 or better for me to run the football. Now, what does that actually mean? All that means is I need the number of players that I have blocking minus the number of players that the defense are bringing in to stop the run to be equal to 0 or better. When I'm looking at Tampa 2, I've got these two high safeties right here, and these two safeties are just not going to be anywhere close to the run fit. They're just too far back. If a long run breaks, they're there to make sure it doesn't break even further, but these two guys are not in the play when it comes to stopping the run. Just normally around the line of scrimmage, then so you can run the ball outside, but there's a cornerback right there. Cool, you can do that, but there's a wide receiver supposed to be blocking you as well. So if I'm running through the tackles or just around the line of scrimmage in general, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blockers that are there all the time against 1, 2, 3, 4 down defensive linemen. So 5 minus 4, 1. I'm +1 in the run game. That is a go. But Cam, there are 3 linebackers right around the line of scrimmage. What's going on there? They can help too. That's 3. Well, it doesn't matter because, again, of counting. This linebacker can come fit the run, and cool, that's fine. That's 5 versus 5. That's still 0. You're still in a solid position if you're trying to run the football. These linebackers can come up as well, but there are wide receivers that are supposed to be blocking them as well. Now, are they going to be good at blocking? That's a whole other discussion. But in terms of just pure numbers, even if these 5 guys, these 1, 2, 3 guys come in, there are still numbers for them. And now we're also dealing with types of offenses where you have a mobile quarterback. That's someone else you need to actually be cognizant of in the run game, especially if you're running some zone reads, because cool, fine, you guys can bottle up the running back all you want if he comes here. The quarterback can just take it, and now all of you guys have all these resources committed. Quarterback can just kind of come in and just take it out and run for a very long way. It happens with Lamar Jackson's, Patrick Mahomes will do it from time to time, Jalen Hurts. Having a mobile quarterback puts a lot of stress on the defense, but in general, it is just really, really hard to stop just an inside zone or a zone read with 2 high safeties. Now looking at cover 3, you don't have the same math issue that you did when you were working with just a 2 high safety. Yes, you have 3 players and 3 DBs that are a bit high, and a lot of times the corners can read it, and if things go out to the outside, they can come down and help out there. But when we're talking about just the line of scrimmage, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys around the line of scrimmage if you're the offense. Now, if you're the defense, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You are now -1 if you're the offense or +1 if you're the defense. you are now, if you're the defense, in a more advantageous spot to stop the run. And it kind of correlates a bit to what you've seen with Hazelton's rushing defense. In 2023, he was 68th, which is fine. 2022, they were very bad at Michigan State, 101. 2021, they were 15th. 2020, 55th. 2019, 76th. 2018, 25th. 2017, 60th. You're never going to have, I don't think you're ever going to have an elite defense, and there's a reason about that I'm going to get to when I break down, what a normal sequence would look like underneath the Hazelton defense. But in general, if you're running cover 3, you're running it on first down because you're trying to make sure the offense doesn't run the ball well. And it's just a lot more beneficial to do that than running your stock Tampa 2, which is what those guys kind of grew up knowing. So what does that look like in practice, down? These defensive coordinators that are Tampa 2 disciples have essentially the same sort of rule, the same sort of script they want to follow. On first down, you're going to see cover 3 or cover 1. You're going to see something that is very adept at stopping the run on 1st and 10. You see it here. This is 2019 Kansas State versus Iowa State. So it was just count the bodies. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 down linemen, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 1 high safety. That means there's going to be 1 player that's up here. So it's either cover 1, cover 3. These corners can bail. But regardless, when you look at the numbers, this is not a very advantageous box for Iowa State to run the ball in. So what happens here? They check it. Shout out Brock Purdy. That's how long ago this was. Brock Purdy was still in college. He checks out of a run. They pass. It's fully man coverage. Linebacker makes a pretty good play on the ball there. Incomplete. 2nd and long now. Now when you get to the 2nd and long, that's where these coordinators are like, okay, cool. Now we're down to step 2. Step 2 on these 2nd and longs after they've successfully stopped the run or gotten an incomplete pass or short pass on first down. 2nd and 10 is not a running down. Some people do. In general, it is more than likely not a running down. So you'll see a lot more too high looks. These are the looks that'll definitely get you in trouble if, sometimes people are going to have a nice counter and say, you know what, it's 2nd and 10, let's run the ball, maybe we pop one. Because if you look at the counting again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there are only 6 people in the box versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's even. They're even right there. As we explained earlier, that's usually a solid one to run the ball. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but you can see there's 2 high safeties here. But on 2nd and 10, they like running, whether it's Tampa 2, cover 2, you're going to see more than likely a 2 high look on 2nd and long. So what happens here when they finally get that 2nd and long, Iowa State doesn't run the ball. They actually get some good penetration up front. It ends up being an incomplete pass. Also, yes, that's how long ago this was. This is Breece Hall in an Iowa State uniform. That's now step 2 of that complete for a disciple of the Tampa 2 defense and for what Scottie Hazelton likes to run. Now we're in 3rd and long. Now we're in something where you're like, okay, the only thing I cannot do on this down is give up a first down. So what they'll do here is a lot of times it can be kind of funky, but a lot of times you'll see this is where Scottie Hazelton likes throwing out quarters, which is just essentially saying, hey, everyone, let's just kind of back up and we're going to play a bit of basically sticks. But you don't know that because pre-snap, you can't run this ball at all because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people at the line of scrimmage. Now, odds are most of these people are not going to blitz on 3rd and 10 because sending an all-out blitz on 3rd and 10 is a horrid idea. You are leaving someone open. It is the easiest way to get popped for a screen or somewhere over the middle. Do not run an all-out blitz on 3rd and 10. There's a reason people play sticks on that. But just the idea that you don't know which one of these guys that are standing up is going to actually pop out and be a rat, which is someone that he's looking there and he pops out. You never know that, so you have to discern that and just decipher that from pre-snap, and it'll change post-snap. But what you're going to see here is you see this idea that he's going to bring a ton of pressure, and Scottie Hazelton does bring pressure, but on 3rd and 10, again, you're not really going to do it there. So he gives the idea, look, you're not going to be able to run your way out of here. And then you see a safety just bail. And if we're counting again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is all 11 players, by the way. They don't have a single player over the top here. So 4 kind of has to bail because he has to say, look, I need to be able to give someone some help here. We've given him a look. There's only 7 seconds left on the play clock. We've given him enough of a look of, oh no, what's going to happen here? He's probably thinking, I got one-on-one coverage up here. I can do this. So now 4 bails out. He's going to be over the top there, and you see 2 bail, and you see him playing man coverage. So that's kind of he likes playing some split coverages. This side of the field is playing a bit more zone. This side of the field is playing man. That'll happen a lot. It's 3rd and 10, but since their coverage is just really good, 2 people bail out. He has his man pretty well. The only thing these 2 guys are basically playing the sticks. The only thing that only comes available is a little crossing route over the middle. Gets stopped for about 5-6 yards. Now you have to punt. That's the sequence of what Scottie Hazelton wants to do. On 1st down, he wants to be able to run a cover 3, cover 1 to be able to stop the run. 2nd down, you'll see cover 2 or Tampa 2, probably Tampa 2. And on 3rd down, you'll see just him either blitz or act like he's going to blitz, and you have to figure out pre-snap which one it's going to be. So I've done a lot of talking about what it looks like or what it's supposed to look like when this defense is going well, and I think it's important to show the good parts of it. I think it's also important to show what/why makes this defense fall apart, and that's something I do for no matter who is the defensive or offensive coordinator. Every coordinator, every scheme has flaws. I think Kyle Shanahan is one of the best offensive coordinators in the world. When that team is down, that offense doesn't work. It is predicated on running the football. Every scheme has something that makes it just not work. With this, it's a lot more player dependent, and I think play action can put a little bit of stressors on it. And so you need to make sure that your players are physically up to snuff and also mentally up to snuff. You see here, it's 1st and 10, about 3 minutes left in the half. Same game that we were watching earlier. And this is football for dummies. I'm a dummy. We're going to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got 7 Kansas State people in the box versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blockers for Iowa State. This is never a situation where Iowa State's going to run this football. There's just not. If Iowa State wants to run this football, they can have it, man. They can freaking have it. And so you have this, and if you're Iowa State, they ran a decent amount of RPOs back in the day. I say back in the day, like 2019 wasn't 5 years ago. But you see from the defense, you see this is cover 1. This is cover 1 man. It's cover 1 because there's one defensive back. The safety is just not out of the play, but he's out of the run fit. He's going to be the help over the top. And you've got this guy on man coverage. He's on man coverage. He's on man coverage. This is going to be the guy to watch. Both your linebacker and your nickel. Nickels are just probably the most important part of a defense at this point in time. I get how people value your pressure up front, whether it's the edge or defensive tackles. If you don't have a nickel, you don't have a defense because you can't cover. So what Iowa State does here, they see it's cover 1 man. Cool, fine. This guy rotates down the line of scrimmage. They run RPO. And so now we look at it from, okay, we have our defensive back here, our nickel here. He gives up inside leverage, which understandable. But part of that is because this linebacker is supposed to be reading effectively what the offense is doing and adjusting quicker and adjust very quickly. He kind of gets sucked in a bit to the RPO, even though, frankly, how the play breaks down, he didn't need to be that nosy with it. He's supposed to identify and go, okay, it's an RPO. We have numbers. I can bail out of this for a second. But he doesn't really bail until the ball is basically thrown. Yeah, he doesn't bail until the ball is thrown. Now there's a vacated window where Purdy has thrown the ball to the receiver. The nickel, he doesn't do a great job in this one. Being nickel's hard. I don't think he had a great game in this one. But regardless, that space isn't supposed to be vacated by that linebacker, but it is. It was a good play call and not a good response from the linebacker there. And it is off to the races. I don't think 20 took a great route either, but we're off to the races. And that's how quickly this defense and any defense can fall apart. It does not take much for a defense to just die. I know everyone hates the cliche of the saying, 10 of us are doing the right thing and one of us isn't. And that's how big plays happen like this, but it's true. One person not doing their job, one or two not doing their job is an easy way to give up a massive play. And then it gets to the part where I get a little bit worried about this defense, and not so much worried of like, oh no, this is a bad hire, but worried of I'm interested to see how that plays around the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however long Scottie Hazelton is there. The big worry about a Tampa 2 style defense / cover 3 in general, because they have the same structural issues, is in the red zone. And it's really interesting because if you look at his 4 years at Michigan State, he was 59th in red zone scoring defense in 2023, 29th in 2022, 55th in 2021, and 34th in 2020. So for 4 years, he was solid to pretty damn good in the red zone. But I also don't know how much that matters when they were giving up points left, right, up, down from 21, 30, 40 points. They were giving up explosives everywhere they possibly could. So I don't really know how much that helps me. And so, okay, what was he, the previous years? His 1 year at Kansas State, he was 130th in red zone defense. 2018, his second year at Wyoming, 91st. 2017, his first year at Wyoming, he was 21st. And 2013, when he was defense coordinator at Nevada, he was 112th. It's not supposed to be a bend, don't break defense. This is supposed to be a defense that is supposed to be shutting you down. And it's one of those, when it gets into a red zone, generally the dam will burst. It's just structurally Tampa 2 is just not good when it comes to the red zone. But again, every defense has its flaws. I think Kyle Shanahan is one of the best play callers in the history of football. When Kyle Shanahan gets down in games, his offense doesn't really work because it's predicated on running the ball. And what can't you do down 10 points? Can't run the football. So everyone has their flaws and their roses. Everyone has the roses and thorns. It's just a matter of how do you mitigate it and how do you avoid these situations. You can see it here, through it. They get down to the 10-yard line and they make they make Iowa State work for it. They don't just get it on the first drive. Breece Hall does get, a huge for the actual scenario gain, but it does take him until he gets to 4th down in order to actually punch the ball in. Now he still does punch the ball in, and that's still a problem. But and that's kind of where I'm worried. But it's not so much they're going to give it up on the first play. They're going to make you work for it. So that flag is just offsides. So that's something I'm not so much like, oh no, this is a bad hire. I'm curious to see what the schematic is in terms of fixing this. Overall, I enjoy the hire. I think the hire is really good. I'm willing to just kind of throw out whatever happened at Michigan State completely on defense and really on offense too. I mean, outside of Kenneth Walker, that offense wasn't all that good. So I'm willing to throw out just it being abysmal at Michigan State, especially with how Texas defense has looked really good this year. And if you go back through all these games at Wyoming and Kansas State and Nevada, this guy has been really good at what he does. I think there are some areas that he's going to have his hand in, and I think he's going to be very hands-on with the linebackers. I think right now that would be my guess. But I think the important things that are going to be great for him in the portal is getting, making sure he keeps his safeties. So I think Wake has solid safety play, and I think with a guy like Devon Patterson, Rashawn Tongue, Miles Turpin, Nick Anderson, those are guys that I think he's going to get his hands on and go, oh, I love the way I can use these guys. I think he's going to love the way he can use a Quincy Bryan and then Dylan Hazen. But I'm interested to see what they do at corner, because you're going to need corners, especially in nickel, in this type of defense. I like Samari Stevenson. I think he's going to be a good player. I like the incoming freshmen. I like the guys that are sophomores, whether it's Sam Neely and Devin Cook, Tayshawn Burney. I think those guys have a lot of potential, but I think you need some experience to help them. And obviously, Wake needs to replenish the defensive line. You're not going to, no matter how good your coverage is, if you don't get penetration, if you don't get in a push up front, you are just going to lose. And so for me, it's going to be interesting to see what the Jimmies and Joes are year 1 and year 2 versus what the play calling is. Because as we saw from last year, when Wake, and I explained it earlier, you can't just call stock cover 3, and that's what Wake kind of had to do because they didn't have the Jimmies and Joes. You kind of get just knifed by 1,000, you get death by 1,000 cuts. And so I'm interested to see what the next week, 2 weeks in the portal looks like for Wake defensively, because then it'll start telling us the story of what this defense should look like structurally, what the play calling is going to be, and how effective it's going to be. This was my first time doing something like this. I had a lot of fun doing this. You can find more of my content at demondeacondigest.com. And as always, go Deeks.